This episode is brought to you by the world's first reposado from Tequila Herradura, made with slow-cooked, hand-harvested agave sealed into oak barrels and aged 11 months before being enjoyed in your glass. Experience the world's first reposado, Tequila Herradura. Please drink responsibly. Responsibility.org. Tequila Herradura. 40% alcohol by volume. Imported by Brown-Forman, Louisville, Kentucky. Herradura is a registered trademark. Copyright 2025 Brown-Forman Corporation.
This episode is brought to you by Amazon Prime. From streaming to shopping, Prime helps you get more out of your passions. So whether you're a fan of true crime or prefer a nail-biting novel from time to time, with services like Prime Video, Amazon Music, and fast free delivery, Prime makes it easy to get more out of whatever you're into or getting into. Visit Amazon.com/Prime to learn more.
Welcome to the Sportsman's Voice Roundup, your weekly look at conservation and sporting community news happening across the nation and on the Hill. Thanks for tuning in. This is the TSV Roundup. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to this edition of the Sportsman's Voice Roundup, your weekly look at conservation news from across the nation for the week of August 4th, 2025. I'd like to acknowledge this week's supporters, Bass Pro Shops, Richard, Childress Racing, and Safari Club International. Thank you, one and all. Before we get to this week's headlines, a friendly reminder for those that are joining us in December in Memphis for the NASC Summit. Now is the time to register. You have until September 1st, less than a month away, for your early bird registration. So make sure you're making those arrangements now. Get in on the outdoor activities before they sell out. We got a great program in store for everybody attending, as well as those outdoor activities. It's going to be a lot of fun. So again, head over to congressionalsportsman.org, get to the NASC Summit registration, very easy, and get your early bird registration done today before time runs out, September 1st. All right, this week's headlines. Western Commission to review wolf seasons. We welcome back Marie Neumiller here in a moment to talk all things wolf conservation. Senate confirms Brian Nesvik as the Director of Fish and Wildlife Service. South Carolina Legislative Sportsmen's Caucus weighs in on local surf fishing ordinance. CSF testifies on protecting critical conservation funding in Massachusetts. And we wrap things up with Missouri seeking to expand nighttime coyote hunting opportunities. A lot of fun there. All that and more, but let us get to our lead story here with Marie. Marie, welcome back in.
Thank you. It's great to be back.
So we've got a couple things going on out west, primarily Idaho and Montana. Our partners at NTA, plus you and I talked about this issue in Montana. It looks like we're going to increase potentially the take here without giving your whole piece away. That's kind of what started the conversation. Got some information on that and you ran with it. So you got some important reporting to get to as it concerns wolf conservation. I'll let you take it from here.
All right. Thank you. So both states, Idaho and Montana, their commissions are starting to take a look at wolf hunting seasons as well as wolf population. We've reached the time of year where both do their annual reviews. The big thing in Idaho, they're starting to shift their ways of doing population estimations and management. In the past, when the wolf population was lower, there were a lot more collars deployed, and they were doing like other states do with a minimum count. So they were counting each wolf out there, finding those collars, counting how many were in the pack. As the population starts to grow and management becomes more normalized with more hunting seasons on the books, they're shifting away from that individualized count towards a new method. They call it the ABC method, which is the approximate Bayesian computation model. And a lot of that is going to be based on hunter harvest and the age, gender, and genetic data collected with each harvest.
Mm-hmm.
So it'll be very similar to how states track population health for deer and elk based on the report hunters turn in after their harvest. In Montana, they're looking at changing the harvest quotas from 334 up to 500. So they're going to start shifting the number of wolves allowed for harvest because their wolf population is currently higher than the mandates they had set for goals. And those goals are in place to help them maintain balance between predator and prey numbers, as well as there's some social balance to that as well. How many wolves will humans be able to tolerate on the landscape?
Mhm.
So both states are looking into their goal numbers for wolves as well as their management goals for the coming year.
You'll hear when it comes to the Montana increase and anti-trappers, anti-predator hunters, they will come out and say, "Well, nature needs to do its thing. They don't need to be managed like this." And the sporting community, the hunters, only want to shoot more wolves so they can have more elk and deer to shoot. This disingenuous line of thought. When truthfully, yeah, there's a balance that needs to be struck between those ungulate prey species, but also for the health of the pack. If they're out there in greater numbers and they're uh, taking out too many of the wild prey species, one, it's going to create a food imbalance on the landscape, and then two, you're going to start having more increased interactions between ranchers, humans, and those predator species. So, no, it's not just because there's more tags to fill and hunters want to go out there and have a good time. There is a genuine scientific goal setting that needs to be achieved by the prescribers at the state agency.
Yes. And I'll share a comment that Representative Paul Fielder of Montana. He is a caucus co-chair as well as a member of our NASC Executive Council. One point that he shared as well is just increasing the quota does not necessarily lead to an increased harvest.
Hmm.
So some of the things that the commissions are looking at and that some of our legislators have reached out to the commission on is making sure that we're just not just adjusting quotas, but also maintaining meaningful methods of harvest.
Hmm.
There was a recent lawsuit and court decision that has impacted both Idaho and Montana. And Idaho acknowledged that lawsuit when they were looking at their populations. During that commission presentation by Idaho Game and Fish staff, they did point out that the current wolf population has stayed steady in Idaho for the last 3 years, even with their pretty open and flexible harvest rules. But because that lawsuit has impacted wolf trapping, specifically during any time that a grizzly bear is not
Hmm.
in hibernation, that has eliminated a strong tool for population management for a large portion of the year. So they anticipate that the wolf population in Idaho will increase this next year and years coming because the trapping season has been considerably diminished,
Yeah,
which makes it harder for the state to maintain that balance between predator and prey
yeah,
populations.
100%. And I remember when that occurred, and I think you and I talked about it in real time when that was going on, and just trying to, you think of those that trap, you think of the trap size typical for a wolf, and I want to say 750 size MB would probably be a good wolf trap. Now, your grown grizzly is not going to get hung up in that. Likely, I would be very surprised. But the younger bears potentially, I think, was what they were looking at, right, for that. Do you remember, and I don't mean to put you on the spot with this because that's not what we're here to talk about, but I'm curious, do you remember what their exact reasoning was, if it was for an age class of bear that they were trying to avoid? And I also wonder, were there a lot of documented cases of incidental catch that prompted that?
There was only one documented case of incidental catch, but that was in an illegal set.
There you
So
go.
the trap that the bear was caught in was not what wolf trappers in Idaho were allowed to utilize, but the court, I think, held on to that as because it happened that then there is a possibility it could happen without, in my personal opinion, fully acknowledging that that was not the trap set that would be on the landscape if wolf trapping was allowed when grizzly bears were active.
There you go. Well, taking that very effective tool out of the tool bag, and one that, quite frankly, provides a lot of biological data to wildlife managers by way of trapping, and let them, that further adds to that ABC. of what's out there in the landscape, the health of the pack, and it just all goes into it. And it's one less thing the state agency has to seek money for to do that research and put staff on the ground when trappers are out there, paying for a license, paying for their own gear, doing it as a for free for the state. Kind of wild.
Yes, and you're seeing 2 clusters of wolves, so the northwestern corner of Montana is a lot more dense with wolf populations than they are as you move towards the east.
Hmm.
So having those tools available, unfortunately, that northwestern corner is also a grizzly bear area. You're looking at that Yellowstone, the greater Yellowstone ecosystem, where they are both more densely populated, but managing those higher densities of wolf populations in an area where elk may be struggling is not possible because of that lawsuit. And unfortunately, that takes away management tools and options for Fish and Wildlife and the commission as well.
Well, we will certainly pay attention here and follow up and see what is made of this increase if it does go into effect, um, and what that means for sportsmen and women in Montana specifically on that. Um, I guess we'll leave it there. Parting thoughts.
Just again, Congressional Sportsmen's Foundation is a really strong supporter of the North American model of wildlife management and conservation. And we really believe strongly that each individual state has the staffing resources and the tools needed to manage those populations. And that's the best place to keep that management. I know that the states are currently looking at how they do their population estimates and their densities. Excuse me. They've got a lot of science going into this. They need to be able to have the tools needed to maintain the ecosystem balance.
Yeah, for sure. And I would say and add to that that we have at CSF remained extremely consistent on those points of supporting the state agencies and letting them institute best management practices as it pertains to trapping, and then also the larger goal setting for their wildlife management. So well said, well put, Marie, and we thank you for your reporting and bringing us up to date on what's going on in the West concerning wolves. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we'll talk to you soon. All right, one more time, thanks to Marie for her reporting and coming on and joining us. Certainly some important items out there to follow up on and keep track of, and we will do just that when things change and they were warranted. As always, I ask at this time in the show that you guys take a moment, take 10 seconds, pull out your phone as long as you're not driving, and go to your favorite podcasting platform where you're hearing this. And where applicable, subscribe or follow. If there is a star rating system, please go down there, hit those 5 stars, register your support of the show. As always, your participation helps us become discoverable to new audience members and people looking to better themselves, educate themselves with a policy centric program like this that is bringing you current events, current policy issues in the conservation space. So, again, like, follow, subscribe, 5 stars, all of it. We really appreciate it. And we thank you for your support. Continuing on. This from the Hill and from Taylor Schmitz. Senate confirms Brian Nesvik for Fish and Wildlife Service Director. U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service is one of the most important federal agencies for sportsmen and women. Mr. Brian Nesvik is an impressive leader, problem solver, and is a passionate sportsman. His unique and notable experiences will better position Fish and Wildlife Service to meet the challenges facing fish and wildlife across the country and will help advance interests of hunters and anglers. Uh, on Friday, August 1st, U.S. Senate confirmed Mr. Nesvik to be the next director of U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. CSF has strongly supported the nomination of Nesvik to be the director since it was first announced. CSF efforts to help ensure Nesvik was confirmed include leading a sporting conservation community support letter, as well as numerous action alerts to the Congressional Sportsman Caucus members in the Senate. So again, his position as a director of U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service is a critical position, as we stated, for sportsmen and women. His immense experience and leadership makes him uniquely qualified to lead the Fish and Wildlife Service, and CSF is excited to work alongside him to deliver for conservation and sportsmen and women the many wins we hope for. Nesvik brings a distinguished background to the helm of Fish and Wildlife Service, including roughly 3 decades of fish and wildlife management with the Wyoming Fish and Game Department. After graduating with a degree in wildlife fisheries biology, Nesvik began his career with the Wyoming Game and Fish Department as a game warden and has nearly 30 years with that agency, culminated with Nesvik serving as a director of the agency from 2019 until his retirement. During his time with the Wyoming Game and Fish Department, Nesvik demonstrated an impressive ability to manage and address some of the most important and complex challenges facing fish and wildlife, private landowners, businesses, and sportsmen and women. Beyond his career with the Wyoming Game and Fish, Nesvik also retired from the Wyoming Army National Guard as a brigadier general after 35 years of service, a rank that demonstrates his strong ability to lead and make sound decisions. CSF congratulates Nesvik on this well-deserved position and looks forward to working with him in his new capacity. Indeed, congratulations, and good to have someone who understands the issues with strong leadership resume at the helm, no doubt, and definitely look forward CSF working alongside Fish and Wildlife Services. Heading to South Carolina, interesting one here. South Carolina Legislative Sportsmen's Caucus weighs in on a local surf fishing ordinance. While it's a relatively small state compared to others, South Carolina offers some fantastic fishing experience, which brings in anglers from around the country to enjoy its pristine coastal fisheries. Palmetto State offers nearly 200 miles of shoreline loaded with fishing opportunities. Anglers rely on these beaches for various surf fishing opportunities, which provide critical funding for conservation through fishing license sales. So last month, the Georgetown County Council was considering an ordinance that would ban surf fishing from public beaches in Georgetown County, South Carolina, from 7:30 in the morning to 7 o'clock in the evening, May 1st through September 30th. Leaders of the South Carolina Legislative Sportsmen's Caucus recently submitted a letter in opposition to the Georgetown County Council expressing their concerns with a blanket ban on surf fishing in Georgetown County. Following a strong showing of public opposition, the Georgetown County Council voted to remove the proposed ban from the meeting agenda prior to a scheduled July 22nd final vote. South Carolina has a lot to brag about to their fellow hunters and anglers, whether it's their beautiful beaches that offer relaxing surf fishing opportunities to their diverse public land hunting opportunities. Even with the legislature now out of session, the caucus has remained engaged and committed to conserving its hunting and angling heritage. As we noted, the caucus opposes the proposed surf fishing ban that would negatively impact conservation efforts and the local economy, both of which benefit from visiting tourists and beachgoers that choose to surf fish Georgetown County's public beaches. The proposed ban on surf fishing would have likely resulted in a direct loss of fishing license sales, which would lead to a loss in conservation funding due to the American System of Conservation Funding. Additionally, these anglers generate local revenue and taxes when purchasing bait gear, food, transportation, and lodging to support their surf fishing trips. This ban would penalize both the anglers themselves and the local economy and conservation funding for all South Carolina. In their letter, the caucus leadership stated a blanket ban on surf fishing altogether during the peak of tourist season is unfair to all those who fish in Georgetown County. If passed, ordinance number 2522 would result in the direct loss of fishing access to our local anglers and many tourists who frequent our renowned beaches in the hopes of quality fishing experience. It is undeniable that an overarching ban on surf fishing would penalize law-abiding anglers. CSF commends the caucus for taking a leadership role at the local level to protect the interests of South Carolina sportsmen and women. This win at the local level comes on the heels of a successful legislative session where House Bill 3872, a bill sponsored by caucus leadership that would limit the loss of available acreage open to hunting for South Carolina sportsmen and women, cleared the House of Representatives unanimously and awaits final passage from the Senate when the legislators convene for the 2026 legislative session. These are just two examples that demonstrate the versatility and effectiveness of the caucus and its working relationship with CSF and the National Assembly of Sportsmen's Caucuses. Yeah, way to go, man. I mean, like I said in the beginning, kind of alluded to it. You don't often see the state level legislative sportsmen's caucuses getting involved locally, but here's a great example of the power of NASC and our legislative sportsmen's caucuses that we work alongside with in the state houses um, to get things done. So not just passing law at the state house, but also using their know-how, using their position to work locally. I mean, these folks got to live somewhere. They don't live in the state house, so this would affect them too, and being able to fish and take advantage of the great resource that is the South Carolina coastline with its great opportunities. Losing 12 hours during the height of the tourist season is just madness. I don't think I'm overstating it. That's a pretty big deal. So good on them, all working together, coming together, and having a united voice and getting a good result. So congratulations there. Heading up to the Bay State, this from Christian Ragosta on Tuesday, July 22nd, the Massachusetts Joint Committee on Veterans and Federal Affairs held a hearing on nearly 40 bills, two of which are designed to provide free hunting and fishing license to 100% disabled veterans at a free or no cost. House Bill 3819 and House Bill 3858. As we all know, we've covered here on the show, well-intended and certainly deserving segments of society, looking to take care of and show a little appreciation. Um, on the back end, we lose that conservation funding, right? And we've covered this. I feel like this comes up every week on the show. To that end, to receive matching funds to the American System of Conservation Funding, a state must receive a net revenue of $2 per license. This year in Massachusetts alone, there are 5 separate bills which would provide free or discounted hunting and fishing licenses to disabled veterans. As acknowledged, providing hunting and fishing access to one of the most deserving groups of individuals in our community is laudable and deserves consideration. However, CSF encourages that when considering such proposals, the full impact on conservation funding should be considered and mitigated, including both the loss of license revenue as well as the intended loss of federal match dollars through the wildlife sport fish restoration programs. It is rare that a discussion centered on issues of conservation is held within the Joint Committee on Veterans and Federal Affairs in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. However, when these conversations do occur, CSF works diligently to make sure funding for wildlife management and mission delivery of the Mass Wildlife Department is maintained. These bills will be reported on by September 20th by the committee. CSF has encouraged amendments to the legislation and continues to support legislators to work with their wildlife agency. CSF also serves as a resource to educate legislators who may not always have opportunities to discuss conservation and the American System of Conservation Funding due to their committee assignments. According to the Associate Director of Administration and Finance of Mass Wildlife, 85% of their funding is derived through the American System of Conservation Funding, whereas most states receive 60% or more funding through this model. The Commonwealth significantly relies on funding through the federal match as well as hunting and fishing license sales. Numerous other states have developed and adopted ways to maintain and protect conservation funding for their wildlife agencies while still fulfilling the intention to reward and provide for groups such as disabled vets. One way the Commonwealth is encouraged to retain funding is by the example that we cite all the time in Tennessee that provides an amendment that could be added to these bills to protect conservation funding for mass wildlife. Tennessee Title 70, Chapter 2 states the agency shall be reimbursed for lost revenue resulting from the issuance of free or partially discounted combination hunting fishing licenses created by statute on or after the date it was incepted, uh, in an amount equal to the discounts received. Other states like Arizona have come up with a graduated scale providing a discount for licenses for those who were honorably discharged from their service based upon their time in the military. And that is House Bill 2468. Legislators have been encouraged to work with Mass Wildlife to find the best solution for the wildlife agency's needs. CSF encourages the legislators there in Massachusetts to work with their wildlife agency to facilitate and prescribe best practices in maintaining conservation funding while also standing up for our community's vets. It is unclear of the size and scope of licenses that would be impacted by discounted or free programs in the Commonwealth. It is essential for Mass Wildlife to be a part of the discussion of licensing fees and discounts so that unintentional consequences do not hamper the much needed funding for fisheries and wildlife conservation in the Bay State. Yeah, I don't want to beat the audience head in with this. Like I said, we do touch on this weekly. It comes up, and again, it's I'll say this: it's great, right? It's great. The intent is great. Certainly, myself as a vet, like that's nice. It's good to feel feel that love from the state, from the communities, from the legislators wanting to do a good thing. But you can't do a good thing and then create a not so good thing in doing that, right? One one doesn't outweigh the other on that. So let's find a middle ground if where we maintain that funding and try to service those who service us, first responders, vets, those are the types. All right, last story here. Looking like Missouri is going to expand or would like to expand nighttime coyote hunting opportunities. Fun, fun. After opening opportunities for nighttime hunting for coyotes in 2020, the Missouri Conservation Commission and Missouri Department of Conservation are weighing an expanded season to take advantage of predator population control benefits associated with hunting, while also providing increased opportunities for coyote hunters. These opportunities highlight the mutual benefits that state wildlife managers and sportsmen and women receive as it relates to our time honored outdoor traditions. After establishing a limited nighttime hunting season for coyotes in 2020, Missouri Department of Conservation recently proposed a regulatory update expanding the season. Currently, nighttime hunting for coyotes can take place during the months of February and March, while the proposed change would extend that season from January through September, except during the spring turkey season. CSF submitted comments in support of this proposed change during last month's public comment period. The agency, the department, and the commission concluded their public comment period for several proposed regulation changes, and among those were the extending of the nighttime hunting season for coyotes, moving the start date month from January while extending it through September, as we noted above. This is a significant increase from the state's current 2-month season that was created 5 years ago. As was the case in 2020, during that proposal period, CSF submitted a letter of support for the proposal, highlighting the importance of hunting and trapping in the management of coyote populations in the state. CSF also applauded the increased opportunity that is expanded upon for the season and that would provide more opportunity for sportsmen and women while recognizing the department's forethought and including a carve out in the season to avoid overlap with spring turkey hunting. CSF will continue to monitor this and any other proposals as they work their way through the regulatory process. Yeah, that's cool. I'm guessing Missouri is their coyotes are much like ours. Excuse me, that breeding season, that coyote rut really kicks off there in those winter months, and action packed for the would be coyote hunter. It's a lot of fun, and if you've ever had the chance to go out at night and do that, it's a totally different experience, a little spooky sometimes, but it is a lot of fun, and opportunities abound there. So, and the carve out for turkey season is interesting and well thought out there, as well. And it should be noted too. I mean, again, I can't speak for Missouri from experience like I can up here, um, where I live in New Hampshire. It's you got people that go out there and do this. The anti crowd would lead you to believe that there's a hunter every 2 square miles doing this, and it's not true. It's a niche community. Folks that have the ability to get out there and do that have the schedules that can get out there, and they're just passionate about it. Um, Conversely, over in Maine, much bigger state, a lot more room to roam, much more robust population of coyotes, that definitely in the northern part of the state get into those deer yards and really, wreak havoc on deer population. So anyway, um, more more of an engaging experience over in Maine. But yeah, I mean, Missouri, good on you. Like create that opportunity, get folks out there. Um, Certainly, if you're into the fur game, that fur is nice and prime in those first few months, and then you're contributing outside of that to the department's management goals as well. And again, it should go without saying, but it needs to be said. The department scientists and professionals are not going to recommend these increases if it would have a detrimental effect to the balance, the carrying capacity on the landscape. The name of the game is not whack 'em and stack 'em, as some would lead the non-hunting public to believe. It is very measured and scientifically backed before they make these proposals for regulation change to their commission for approval. So, as Kent Keene's article says, we'll track it and bring you updates when there's more to report. I think that's going to do it for this week. We'll wrap it up there. Hope your summer's going well. Hope your lines are getting wet and working towards September. We are less than a month away. So very exciting times as we start looking towards fall hunting seasons. And again, I think I acknowledged it last week. Some of y'all are getting ready to hunt doves where you can, so that's cool. The first toe in the water, if you will, and then again some of the earlier deer seasons, lower country South Carolina comes to mind with that early buck season in August, which is one of the hottest deer hunting seasons I can say I've ever experienced. So, if you're into it and you can tough it out and all the mosquitoes, God bless you, go get them. Being able to take a beautiful velvet buck in the lower country of South Carolina sounds pretty awesome. Um, yeah, let's put a bell on it there. Same housekeeping as always. Go to congressionalsportsman.org, congressionalsportsman.org. Sign up for the free newsletter, the Sportsman's Voice newsletter. There you can get all the in-article links, do your own homework, dive a little deeper, see what we got going on, look at the testimony, and get better informed and increase the strength of your arguments when you need to make them as a legislator or just as a concerned citizen advocating on behalf of your community and your passions. You can do tracking the capitals as well there. Um, though right now it's probably pretty slim pickings. Most of the states are shut down. So you could do that. But it probably won't pick up again till towards the last back few months of this year, or maybe the last couple months. So anyway, that is their free resources for all. Check it out. As always, CSF is your inside connection to outdoor legislation. Thanks so much for tuning in. We will see you next week, and tune in tomorrow for the featured podcast. We'll see you next week. Bye-bye. Thanks for joining us on this edition of the Sportsman's Voice podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, your support is crucial, and you can help us out right now by leaving a review, filling in those 5 stars where available, sharing this episode with friends and family, and engaging with us socially. CSF can be found on Facebook, Instagram, and X, formerly known as Twitter. Together, we can protect the outdoor sports we love and continue to keep you informed wherever you are. That's it for this week. Until next time, we'll see you later.